All right, fire. Just do your thing here, bud. Nobody's any better at this than you are.
Have fun. Take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. You like this?
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on. Info. Ready. Ready. Slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah!
11 got it. Rowdy there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thanks for joining in. The second week of the NASCAR Chase, week 28 of the season. We head to Kansas to visit Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz as we head to Kansas Speedway for what should be probably, hopefully, a repeat of what we saw in the spring and being one of the most exciting races of the year so far. But before we do that, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for joining in. And let's head back to Darlington just a week ago, where my guy, yay, Kyle Larson, took home his first Southern 500 Cookout 500 and presented by Crown Royal. But either way, Kyle Larson, yes, my boy finally got his Darlington Cup win. First one of his career. It's kind of hard to believe that was his first Cup Darlington win. He's been really, really good there for a long time. Along with Denny Hamlin, who, just missed it in stage 3. Dominated the first 2 stages. But either way, other guys that ended up finishing in the optimal lineup, and 3 guys that, I kind of missed on last week. Tyler Reddick staying up front most of the race, starting 3rd, finishing 2nd, leading 90 laps. Good for Tyler Reddick, and he and Kyle almost had a quite an interesting finish to that, but Kyle Larson was able to hold Tyler Reddick off for that win. William Byron coming from 23rd to 4th. Had a feeling that was probably going to happen. Let me turn this off. Ross Chastain coming through. I guess they've been saving up for the playoffs. So Ross Chastain moving from 27th to 5th. And 2 real value picks rounding out the final 2 spots in the optimal lineup with Justin Haley and Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon at $4,900, starting 26th, even though he finished 29th because of that $4,900, only had 23.5 Draftkings points and made the optimal lineup. Super heavy on the top side. 4 guys, $9,300 or more. And honestly, we might see that similar scenario play out for tomorrow's race. Just the way things are lined up. Of course, now I start getting text messages from people. But either way, we may see something very similar like that happen again this week. It's kind of set up with very, very dominant guys towards the front and some, I guess, decent, cheap options starting from the rear for place differential. But either way, our optimal lineup challenge after 27 races. William Byron up top with 10 optimal lineups so far this season out of 27 races. Quite impressive. Martin Truex Jr. right there with him. Chris Buescher. No surprise, those 2, they've been having really, really great years, including William Byron with that 10. Kyle Busch, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Michael McDowell, Kyle Larson. Justin Haley with 6. That's actually pretty impressive. Also, Austin Dillon with 5. But Ty Dillon finally got himself into the optimal lineup, and our optimal lineup sheet is now completely full. Not sure if we'll see another person added to this list. I don't think so. We've kind of filled it out. The only one really kind of missing out of here is like a BJ McLeod or... yeah, it's really only BJ, and BJ's not even racing this weekend. So, I mean, I guess we could see one of the... a Sheldon Creed or somebody like that, or Carson Hocevar potentially make it, but I think that's probably potentially unlikely, but maybe not. But either way, let's head to the land of Oz, right outside of Kansas City, Kansas, just about 15-20 minutes outside of west of Kansas City is Kansas Speedway. Wasn't much there until the casino and the racetrack showed up, and now it's quite built up. But either way, we are headed to Kansas Speedway for the Hollywood Casino 400. The track type is an intermediate D-shaped 1.5 mile cookie cutter style track. It's 17 to 20 degrees progressive banking in the turns. This race length is 267 laps. Dominator points will be something we need to be concerned with. Not as much as last week, but still a definite concern. We definitely want to target at least a Dominator, maybe a second. I think the second is much more of a finishing type position, where we're probably going to look to target 2 or 3 guys for finishing positions, and then a couple of value picks that may have some decent place differentials. But I think really what we're looking for is 1 to 2 Dominators, 2 to 3 finishing spots, and 2 value style picks, which really leaves kind of that middle field kind of wide open a little bit. Other than we do have Kyle Busch and Ty Gibbs starting from the rear in repaired or backup cars. Either way, our track comparisons, we compare this to Charlotte, Las Vegas, Texas, and Miami Homestead. All 3 1.5-mile tracks, all 3 with pretty high tire wear. Tire wear will be something that will be of concern. Not as big, but there will be tire fall off. It won't be as big as last week at Darlington, but we will see some tire fall off and degradation going on throughout the race, with some different strategies and fuel mileage strategies and things like that. So either way, the real reason we are here is to talk about the drivers, their pricing, their stats, and all of that stuff. I think I had time tonight, and because my Virginia Tech Hokies ended up losing in a whatever it was 8-hour football game with a 5.5-hour rain delay. Yeah, so it's not just NASCAR. I guess college football can't play in the rain anymore either. I think it has something to do with the electricity coming from the sky that caused the biggest problem, and the flash flooding. But either way, Paul Moss, greetings. Thanks for early content tonight. I mean, it's 9:40 here. I'm not sure this is early, but are you talking like early as in not in tomorrow? Well, tomorrow I've got, hopefully, fingers crossed, my son's baseball tournament. He is 13, so this will be his first year on the big fields. So quite excited to see his team progress onto the bigger fields and kind of see how that goes. It could be quite interesting of a game tomorrow. But fingers crossed that we don't get any rain tomorrow and they can get some games in and we can kind of see how they do. But that's the reason, most of the reason for tonight. I also like doing the Saturday nights, even though I do have the Texas-Alabama game on, which seems to be quite a juggernaut. So hopefully I get some people to watch this, because lots of college football out there, and NFL starts tomorrow. Oh, full weekend of sports, to say the least. But my favorite sport's on. And if you're probably joining here, that's probably one of your favorite sports. Even though I will probably put a couple of NFL lineups in, but I will not give any advice whatsoever when it comes to NFL and NFL lineups. I just watch it to enjoy the sport. If you need advice for that, make sure you hit Family Guy up, or Matt maybe he might show up in here tonight in a little bit. He does really, really well. In fact, I'll probably reach out to him for some advice on the old NFL lineups before I put something in tomorrow. But Denny Hamlin, top of our price chart here at $11,000 in DraftKings. As I do every week, we will break this whole box down in detail, and then we'll kind of summarize the rest of them and go through any questions that you guys might have. But Denny Hamlin, $11,000. The next line here is his starting position. This is where he qualified in 14th. He then, in this gray area next to his starting spot, is his practice laps and how many laps he did. He was 12th on single lap speed, so his fastest single lap speed was 12th compared to everyone else. He did 26 total laps of practice, and he did do a 10 lap consecutive average run. So that's 10 consecutive laps without coming in for pits, which they can kind of judge and how their tire fall off is, how their long run setup is, and things like that. And Denny Hamlin was 8th in speed at the end of that 10 lap run. So that kind of gives us an idea that, you know, Denny Hamlin's going to have seems to be a pretty decent balanced car, which could spell real trouble for the field because Denny is really good here at this track. As we will see as we drop down to the bottom line here, this first set here goes off of the last 5 races here at Kansas. So the spring 2023 race, the 2 races from last year, and the two races from the 2021 season. Do remember that the 2021 season was with the last generation car, and this generation car are vastly different. The track stayed the same, the car changed a lot. But either way, it still gives us a pretty good idea of how well these guys run at particular tracks, and Denny Hamlin runs really well at Kansas. The Toyotas in general run really good at Kansas also, as you will see as we go through this breakdown. But Denny Hamlin does have 1 win, which he got here in the spring race earlier this year. Out of the last 5 races here, he's got 4 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 5 top 20s. The next spot here is his DraftKings average, which is his average DraftKings points per race. And over these 5 races, to make it into the top 15 in points, on average, you needed about a 35 DraftKings average. So Denny Hamlin was almost twice what he needed to be in the top 15. So Denny Hamlin, very, very good here. His average finish over those 5 races is 4.8, which is phenomenal. That's really good over those five races. Like I said, he did finish first in the spring race here earlier. And then over here to the far right, we do have his total full history in the Cup Series at Kansas. He has 30 total starts in the Cup Series here at Kansas, 4 wins, 12 top 5s, 13 top 10s, and 25 out of 30 he's finished in the top 20. He's got a 12.4 average finish for those 30 total starts. Over here to the top left, the first number here, the number 1, is what I consider to be his kind of ranking. What I do with this ranking is I look at the last 5 races at a particular track. I look at the last 10 races at similar style tracks, which we showed here. And then the last 10 races that they've run. So the last 10 races, that includes anything from like Darlington and Daytona and road courses and everything else, but it shows a trend on how well the team is working. So like Chris Buescher is off the chart right now on the last 10 race trend, where the other things I look at, Denny Hamlin's doing really, really well at. So with all that being said, Denny Hamlin is ranked first on my list. Oh yeah, this ranking system also looks at practice speeds, qualifying, and potential place differential, and potentially winning. So with all that being said, Denny Hamlin's got a little bit of place differential. As we see, he's got a great average finish. His practice speeds were pretty good. So he did come in ranked number 1 on my ranking system. I do have 40 to 45% ownership in Denny Hamlin. This is based on 40 different lineups that I run. So I run a total of 40 different lineups. So you can kind of guesstimate that I am somewhere between 15 and, what is it, 15 and 20? Or like 16 to 20 lineups that I have Denny Hamlin in my lineups. It's very rare that I get above 50% ownership on somebody. And even today, I don't even have 50% ownership on the two guys that are starting 35th and 36th. It's just, I don't like getting that deep on somebody. Every once in a while, like I think I had Martin Truex Jr. like 65% on that Monday race at Dover. Number one, he's really good at Dover. Number two, he's really good at rain-delayed races racing on Monday. And that ended up turning out pretty well. Martin Truex Jr., next in line here, next in the pricing, 10,700, starting third. Martin Truex Jr. is also the favorite by betting standards at, what, it was really low, like 350. So 3.5 to 1 were his odds at winning this thing. Really, really good. And I mean, he's no slouch here. I mean, 6.4 average finish over the last 5 races. He finished 8th in the spring. 52.5 Draftkings average over those 5 races. And, I mean, all 5 races he's finished in the top 10. The problem is starting third. Not that that's really a problem. I mean, Martin Truex Jr. easily could go out and lead a bunch of laps. Typically, though, for us to see that, we would want to see Martin Truex Jr. being a little more dominant in practice. Not that he's not fast in practice, he just wasn't dominant. He wasn't dominant like Truex, or like Tyler Reddick was today. Tyler Reddick was dominant in practice today. Now, he didn't qualify quite as well as we would like, but he qualified pretty well. And typically, Martin Truex Jr., it's either pure dominance or it's, had a good finish, had a good race, but maybe not dominating. And over the last history at Kansas, Martin Truex Jr. has the same number of races as Denny Hamlin, 30. They both started at the same time. A 12.8 average finish, 10 top 5s, 17 top 10s, and 27 top 20s. So, I mean, pretty equal when we look at the two of them. Denny Hamlin's got a little more room for place differential, or Martin Truex Jr. starting up front, so maybe a potential for domination from Truex, more so than Denny Hamlin, but that's not a huge swing between the two of them. Either way, 4th on my power ranking. I have him in 30 to 35% of my lineups. Next in line here, Kyle Larson, 10,500. Starting outside pole in second. And this is kind of what I was saying. I would want to see something more like this, or Tyler Reddick when we get to him, for a Truex Jr. to really think they're going to be dominant. But when Kyle Larson is running like this, and you listen to him in his interviews, and he's like, yeah, our car's pretty good. Very, very Martin-esque type of response. In the days that Mark Martin was like, yeah, our car's okay. It's not great. We'll be all right, though. And he goes out and he leads 75% of the race. This practice reminded me a lot of what Kyle Larson did in 2021. He just looked like he had full absolute control of his car, was extremely fast, and he's really good here. I mean, he and Denny Hamlin battled in the spring to a 1st and 2nd place finish. He's got a 6.4 average finish, which is right there with Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin. 73.5 DraftKings points average, which is phenomenal. He does have a win here at Kansas in the last 5 races. I mean, any 3 of these guys could easily dominate, could easily win this. It's a coin toss. And the problem is, at 11,000, 11,700, and 10,500, you can't really run all 3 unless you just go absolute basement diving, which I do have a couple lineups where I'm not sure I had all 3 of these guys in it, but I had something that was very high priced. And that's, I mean, honestly, that's what we're going to see a lot of. Unless something really strange happens. I expect to see at least 2 of the 6 highest people be in the optimal lineup. And William Byron could be one of those. His stats aren't quite as stellar, but they are still pretty good. And William Byron is having a career year this year. So everything so far that he's done this year has been a little bit better than he's done last year. And if we take that into consideration, he could easily have a pretty good finish tomorrow also. But William Byron, 10,200, starting 9th, so starting in the top 10. He was second in single lap. Now, he did have an issue, and I was watching some other things. Oh, Texas is about ready to score again. Sorry. Happened to look up and saw that Texas was losing, Alabama was winning, but Texas is now inside the 10-yard line, ready to score again. That doesn't mean turn me off and go watch football. You can do both. I'm doing both. I'm not really a fan of either one of these guys, other than I would rather see Texas win than Alabama. Sorry for anybody that's an Alabama fan. You guys have won enough. William Byron, 10,200. But William Byron, the announcers originally thought that he was gonna have to go start from the rear for an unapproved change, but NASCAR decided because it was a part that was manufactured pretty much by NASCAR that broke. And I still don't know exactly what it was because, like I said, I was busy watching football and things like that. They're not going to penalize him for it, so he's able to keep his starting spot, and he was able to make the repair. So I guess it was an approved repair and not an unapproved repair. So no going to the rear for William Byron, just to keep his spot. And he was pretty quick in practice. I mean, he was second. No, he didn't get to the 10 laps because of a part failure. And with that part failure fixed, I mean, all indications are that William Byron should be pretty good tomorrow also. I've got him number 2 on my ranking system. 35 to 40% ownership. He does not have a win here, but does have, I mean, out of 11 starts, all 9 have finished in the top 20. So pretty solid. 10.5 average finish, which is the best so far that we have got. In fact, that might be the best that we see. So William Byron, another really good choice. Christopher Bell, $10,000, starting from the pole. Not quite as fast as I would have hoped to have seen from a pole sitter in practice. 19th in single lap, 12th in 10 lap consecutive average. I mean, not bad speeds, but not pole sitting type speeds. Finished 36th in this race in the spring. Got a 16th place average finish. Now, he does perform really well in the playoffs, but it's very rare that Christopher Bell sits on the pole, dominates, and then finishes well. A lot of times Christopher Bell will sit on the pole, he'll lead, I don't know, the first 10, 20% of a race, and then they fall off, and then they have a bad pit stop, and then he hits the wall, and then he ends up finishing 20th. It's not that I don't mind the pole sitter or outside pole sitter for this race because they're dominant, typically at this style type of track, especially a Kyle Larson. But every time Christopher Bell ends up with a pole, they end up screwing it up somehow. So I just don't trust Christopher Bell to maintain and really be a dominator where you've got a Kyle Larson starting on his outside. And Kyle Larson's got the momentum after winning last week at Darlington. So, and it's not out of the ordinary for Kansas pole sitter to finish in the top 15 in points. So don't get me wrong. I don't think it's an absolute bad play. That's why I'm not an absolute fade on it. I've got 10 to 15% ownership, but I don't have him at 40 to 45% ownership like I do Kyle Larson, who's starting outside. So I'm not as scared of the pole sitter and the outside pole sitter for this style race, where I would be at a Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, or one of the short tracks. A lot more room to race and a lot more room to run. Tyler Reddick next in line here at 9,800, starting 5th. And this is what I was hoping to see out of a Denny Hamlin or a Martin Truex to take some decent ownership, but Tyler Reddick absolutely blistering in practice. First in single lap, first in 10 lap consecutive average. I think he was first in 15 and 20 lap consecutive average. But yeah, Tyler Reddick extremely fast. This 45 car won one of the two races last year with Kurt Busch, and then pretty much the 45 won again with Bubba Wallace in the playoffs. So this 45 car has won both of the races last year. So Tyler Reddick probably should have a pretty good race. And he's on a hot streak right now, too. I mean, finished second right behind Kyle Larson, led 90 laps at Darlington. All indications are that Tyler Reddick should probably have a pretty good race tomorrow. I'm a little less on the ownership side with Tyler Reddick just because he does sometimes have a tendency to screw a pit stop up, or his pit crew ends up messing something up. So that's my only leeriness in it by starting fifth. I don't think it's a bad play. I just don't love it as much as some of the other plays. So, in the last 5 races, he's got 2 top 10s, 2 top 20s, but he doesn't have a top 5. Starting fifth, I kind of need you to finish top 5 to be kind of in the top, I don't know, optimal lineup or top 10 in points. So I don't love the Tyler Reddick play. I could see also potentially going in for it, but I mean we're still talking. We're almost $10,000. I mean, you can only run 3, maybe potentially max of 4 of these guys before. I mean, you really can't do 4. It's really, you can only run 3. Because I mean, the other thing is you've got a Kyle Busch who ends up gonna have to go to going to the rear. I don't know if they had to go to a full backup car or if they just made some repairs to this car, but during practice, blew a tire, hit the wall. It wasn't crushing, but it was enough that they're going to have unimproved parts, so they're going to have to go to the rear. They didn't qualify because they weren't able to get the part on there soon enough. So starting 35th. Now, his practice speeds were not great, but Kyle Busch runs fairly well here. He's got an 18.6 average finish, which, I mean, honestly, is not great over the last 5 races. But you got to remember, last year, he had an off year. And he finished 35th in the spring. So, and my guess is Kyle Busch is probably going to be 50% owned. The issue with this is when I was building lineups tonight, it gets really, really difficult to put a Kyle Busch and a potentially like a Denny Hamlin and a Kyle Larson all in the same lineup without just literally having to go to the bottom of the barrel. Now, the bottom of the barrel is not absolutely awful. It's Ty Dillon at $4,900. But you got to pair Ty Dillon up with somebody else in the $5,000 range to even get close to running what I consider to be probably the highest points getters. And there's another guy starting in the back too. It's from the Toyota camp, and Toyotas are extremely fast here. Ty Gibbs blew a tire and hit the wall also. We've got 2. I mean, Kyle on paper is the better play. And he probably is the better play. But Ty Gibbs has also been running much better than he has, give or take. I don't know. Well, when we get to Ty, I'll talk about Ty. He's coming up here in a second. But there are some thought processes on the Ty Gibbs play. But Kyle Busch, he's going to be 50% plus owned because he's starting 35th. The problem is you're going to have to pair him up with somebody that's going to, I mean, yeah, Kyle Busch could finish in the top 5. Sure, that could be a good finishing position. But you're really kind of betting everything on Kyle Busch having a solid finish at $9,600. If he finishes 20th, that's not enough value. There's not enough money here. There's too much money for that type of finish. You have to have Kyle Busch for this type of money finish top 10, if not closer to top 5. to really make it worthwhile on the flip side when you've got to have a dominator in your lineup. And it just gets really expensive. I mean, you got a Kevin Harvick at $9,500 right below here starting 20th. Yeah, it's 15 spots different, but I mean, Kevin Harvick has a better average finish. Kevin's got 3 wins. He's got a 10.7 average finish, which is a 0.1 better or worse than the best. Kevin's really good here. Now, Kevin and Ford and Stewart-Haas are having a little bit of an off year. But Kevin's really, really hungry to get that final win in his final season. And we're starting to get down to it. I mean, we got 9 races left. Now, we've got some really good racetracks for Kevin, but starting 20th, I mean, Kevin, he's the closer for a reason. He just will silently all of a sudden be there at the end. And his practice speeds were okay. He was 13th and 12th. 13.4 average finish over the last 5 races. 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, 4 top 20s. I mean, at $100 difference, it's tough. I mean, and because you almost have to kind of put them close to the same ballpark. Now, I mean, 15 points is 15 points. Don't get me wrong. The Kyle Busch play is probably the better play, but both these guys are prone to having bad luck. So I'm not real sure. Bubba Wallace, 9,200, starting 10th. He won this race last year. And if we look at his last 5 races here, he's got 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s. Bubba Wallace is just flat out good at Kansas. Plain and simple. 11th place average finish. Now, that's not Denny Hamlin good. That's not Kyle Larson good. But that's solid. For Bubba Wallace, this might be his best racetrack. Finished 4th in the spring. I mean, Bubba Wallace is good here. And he's starting 10th, so there is a tick, small amount of place differential upside potential. But I need Bubba Wallace to finish probably top 5. And we're already talking about a Denny Hamlin that should finish top 5, a Truex Jr. that should probably finish top 5, a Tyler Reddick that potentially should finish top 5. Kyle Larson potentially could easily dominate and win this whole thing's hands down. I mean, we're now, all of a sudden, we're looking at 4 or 5 guys that, even though Bubba Wallace is really good here, there are 4 or 5 guys that are statistically, on paper and by the eyesight, better than Bubba Wallace. So it's a little bit of a tough play here with Bubba Wallace, even though I think he ends up having a really good day. I mean, and here's another surprise. Ross Chastain, playoffs show up, and Trackhouse, I think, may have been hiding a little something for the playoffs, because Ross Chastain ended up having a really good race at Darlington last week. He came out here, he's practiced pretty well. He was 14th in single lap. Now, he didn't do a 10-lap consecutive average. They were kind of fine-tuning a couple of things. They never made that full 10-lap run. And that's why I hate this new practice format. God, I wish they would go to a longer practice format. But he goes out and qualifies 6th. He was fastest in the first round of qualifying. Ross has got a super fast car. The last time Ross had a super fast car was at Nashville, and he went out and dominated and won Nashville. I think Trackhouse kind of hid something a little to the side and said, all right, we're just going to cruise until we get to the playoffs. Well, the playoffs are here, and Ross Chastain seems to be back to Ross Chastain self again. So keep an eye on Ross. I mean, he's got a 9.2 average finish over the last 5 races here. 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s, 9.2 average finish. I mean, that's pretty solid. He finished 5th here in the spring. Okay, buckle up, boys and girls. Playoff time is here, and it's either start winning or you're going to go home. Joe Logano, 8,800, who is a multi-time winner here at Kansas also. But what have you done for me lately, Joey? Not a whole lot, really. 13.2 average finish. Goes out and qualifies 11th. Practice speeds were not great, 26th in single lap. And during his interviews, he seemed to be a little kind of miffed on what was happening and what was going on. And it's kind of strange because the Fords had been really, really fast in qualifying the past few weeks, and now all of a sudden the Fords don't seem to be as fast, and the Chevys and Toyotas seem to be there. So, I mean, historically, the Toyotas are really, really good at Kansas, and the Henry cars seem to be pretty good at Kansas. I don't know. Joey seemed to be a little miffed. And when you're kind of getting the head scratch from the driver going on, I don't know. Kind of makes you go, huh, might be something there. It's not that Joey's bad. 13.2 average finish. It's pretty good. He finished 6th here in the spring. 2 top 10s, 5 top 20s. He's won plenty of times here. He knows how to race this track. Starting 11th and kind of his interviews just kind of made me go, what's going on here? Same thing with Chris Buescher. He just seemed to be a little bit of a head scratch on why they weren't as fast as they thought they were gonna be. 20th in single lap practice, 14th in 10 lap consecutive average. Went out qualified 13th. I mean, it's respectable. But you're talking about somebody who's won 3 out of the last 6 races. Over 50% of the time, this guy's won. Now, that may be a little bit of a head scratch for him to be a little bit slower than normal, but this historically is not one of his better tracks. It's not one of his bad tracks, but 15.8 average finish. 1 top 10, 4 top 20s. I mean, that's kind of the old Chris Buescher that we knew. So, yeah, so I've only got 5 to 10% of Chris Buescher. I think RFK may have overstepped it, where everybody else is caught up to what RFK was doing. I'm not sure. I'm taking a break and a pause on RFK for a week or two just to see if this thing's going to continue to last. Somebody that I think could be really, really sneaky that's in here is Ryan Blaney. This track sets up a lot like Charlotte. It's definitely a different 1.5-mile style track to Charlotte, but it still sets up to potentially be a little bit like a Charlotte, and Ryan Blaney was really good at Charlotte. He's good at 1.5 miles. He's decent here. Well, not even decent. He's got a 19th place average finish over the last 5 races. Something tells me Ryan Blaney's gonna probably end up having a decent day. Now, do I think he's top 5? No. Do I think he's 8th? Yeah, possibly. But from 17th to 8th, that might be enough. It's going to be close, but I think Ryan Blaney could be a sneaky pick, because we're starting to get into this territory of if you went out and you put in a Denny Hamlin and a Kyle Larson into a lineup, and then you go and put in a Kyle Busch because he's starting from the rear in your lineup, you kind of ran out of room. You almost can't run a Ryan Blaney at this point, especially if you try to start targeting a Ty Gibbs, which is just a little bit less expensive, but still, you have filled up your cart with really expensive drivers really, really fast. Now, I don't think those plays are bad up front, but I think the Ryan Blaney play could get overlooked a little bit. Just my thought. So I've got some ownership in Ryan Blaney this week. Next in line here, Brad Keselowski, 8,300. Once again, part of that RFK bandwagon. I'm pushing pause on the RFK bandwagon this week. I mean, potentially Brad K could end up having an okay day here. I just don't see the speed from RFK that I would have liked to have seen in practice. I mean, 25th in single lap, 19th in 10 lap consecutive average. You're starting in 12th. I mean, none of that. I mean, the practice speeds are not great, but this qualifying's okay. But it's not as fast as what the Fords had been and what RFK had been in the last few weeks. So it makes me go, okay. I'm just going to take a pause on the RFK bandwagon for this week. We'll see what happens. They may burn me a little bit. And then next week at Bristol's kind of a crapshoot. So Chase Elliott, 8,100, starting 4th. Ooh, okay. We're starting pretty high up there, Mr. Chase Elliott. somebody who's been super inconsistent and not qualifying well. Had good practice speed, 10th in single lap, 7th in 10 lap consecutive average. He's got a 10.8 average finish here. He's got 1 win out of his 15 total starts. I mean, Chase Elliott seems to be pretty good here. He's starting 4th. I'm just not taking it. This is the one that I pondered for a very long time on why my ownership was as low with Chase Elliott as it was. And to be perfectly honest, this is probably my biggest concern. At $8,100, Chase Elliott, I mean, that's dirt cheap for Chase Elliott. But Chase Elliott, it's not that he's been awful this year, though. The races that he's raced, he's been okay. I don't know. I'll just be perfectly honest with you guys. I honestly think I might be making a mistake here with only having 5 to 10% ownership in Chase Elliott. But once again, during lineup construction, it just got really, really hard to fit these guys in. Because the top end guys are really, they're almost must-haves in your lineups. So we'll see. And Alex Bowman's just an absolute head scratch right now, coming out of Hendrick camp. Just baffling. 23rd in single lap practice, 16th in 10 lap consecutive average, goes out and qualifies 23rd. At a track that he typically normally is pretty good at. Now, he missed the spring race, I get that. But he's got a 10.5 average finish here. 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, 4 top 20s over the last 5 races. To be this slow, yeah, I'm going to continue to hit the pause button, Alex Bowman. Now I've got 10 to 15% because there is a little bit of place differential if we do have some attrition up front. I didn't want to full out fade Alex because there is some room here for place differential, but definitely a concern for what's going on in that 48 camp. Ty Gibbs, $7,600, starting 36 in the rear with I don't even know if it's just a fully repaired car or if they actually pulled the car off the trailer. I don't know which, but he was super fast in practice, 6th in single lap, 3rd in 10 lap consecutive average. I mean, both of those are really, really good, especially when you look at somebody who started here twice and finished 34th twice. So my thoughts with Ty Gibbs. The reason I think I like Ty Gibbs better than I like Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs, number one, is not in the playoffs, so he doesn't have to over push this car to get a good finish. This is a great opportunity and it sets up really well for Ty Gibbs to learn even more about this car, learn more about mile and a half, because we race at mile and a half a lot, or this similar style type track a lot. Work on his pit entry, pit controls, stay on the lead lap, work your way through the front. All the things he's been doing this year, this is the perfect opportunity for him to do exactly that this week. The pressure's off. Other than trying to go get your first win, which I still think is a possibility before the end of this year, but just continue to go good. He's got an extremely fast car. Take care of that car and make it to the end. That's why I like the Ty Gibbs play a little bit more, and it's just a little bit more than I like the Kyle Busch play. You also save a ton of money between the two. I mean, over $2,000 that you save by going with Ty Gibbs over a Kyle Busch, and I think Ty Gibbs may end up finishing better than. I think Ty Gibbs might finish better than Kurt Busch or Kyle Busch. Sorry. All right, next in line, Daniel Suarez at $7,500. Starting 15th, practiced 15th on single lap, 9th and 10 lap consecutive average. Okay. Trackhouse seems to be unloading faster now that we're in the playoffs. And you got to remember, they started setting these cars up long before they knew Daniel was not going to make the playoffs. So they had started setting these cars up for a playoff run. So Daniel is running playoff esque style cars. So showing really good speed. Daniel's pretty good at 1.5-mile style tracks. He's got a 16.8 average finish, which is that's respectable. Finished 15th here in the spring. I mean, lots of 15ths. Now, I don't think that plays well with the rest of the lineup construction. Starting 15th and finishing 15th won't quite cut it. Now, it puts you right there potentially in the top 15. And, I mean, ideally what you're trying to do is you're trying to build lineups with who you think are going to be in the top 15 and then running different variations of those lineups. That's typically how I tried to build my lineups. It's a little tough when we get just really heavy high-end drivers like we do this week, especially with a Ty Gibbs starting 36 and a Kyle Busch starting 35th. But Daniel Suarez 7,500, not a bad play. I don't dislike it and I don't love it either. So I'm 10 to 15% ownership on Daniel. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., $7,300, starting 16th. Fast in practice, he was 7th in single lap, 6th in 10-lap consecutive average. The problem is, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has never finished. Well, he's finished in the top 10 once out of 22 total starts at Kansas. Why I think all of a sudden this is going to change? I mean, he finished 12th in the spring. Oh, okay. Ricky's not bad here. He's not great here either, though. He's got a 21.6 average finish. I think this is kind of like a Daniel Suarez. I think this is he's gonna finish where he starts. Now he's in the playoffs, so he potentially could push it a little bit harder than he needs to, and might gain another couple spots, keep himself relevant for Bristol, but he's not really that great at Bristol either. I mean, the first 3 rounds for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. are just a little tough, and last week probably was his best opportunity to get a really good finish. So I think you get what you get with Ricky. I think it's a start 16th, finish 16th type of day. So I don't have a huge lot of ownership there. Michael McDowell kind of has to do well. Michael McDowell's gonna need to finish stage 1 and stage 2 well and get some points because he's 20 points out from the cut for the playoffs. The problem is Michael McDowell seems to make, unless he's just absolutely lights out like he was at Indy, Michael McDowell, when he needs to push, doesn't do very good when he's got that type of pressure. And his practice speeds weren't good enough for me to think that he really is a 7th place driver. 18.8 is the average finish over the last 5 races, 28.8 total out of 22 total starts. Finished 26th in the spring. 1.5-mile tracks are not really in Michael McDowell's wheelhouse. I think he's just starting too far up for me to really have any interest or want with him. So, I mean, you could take a shot at it, but I think it's just too risky. I think he ends up finishing 14th. Probably more like he finishes 18th or 19th. Now he may get some stage points, but I think after that, I think he begins to fall back. Eric Jones, $7,000, starting 19th, 9th in single lap, 21st in 10-lap consecutive average. But oh wow, what have you done here lately, Eric? 27.2 average finish. Ooh, that's not good. Finished 21st in the spring race. Okay, that's not good. The last time he had a top 5 is when he was driving for Toyota. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of interest in Eric Jones this week. It's not in the playoffs. I think he at best finishes where he starts. Maybe a spot or two better, but I don't think so. I've only got 5 to 10% ownership in Eric Jones. Nothing about any of these stats impressed me, other than maybe 9th in single lap, but that's single lap run. So Where Austin Dillon just completely flipped the script compared to Eric Jones. 29th in single lap practice, 15th in 10 lap consecutive average, then goes out and overqualifies in 8th. Now, he's got a better average finish, way better average finish, 11.4. He's got 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s. The problem is, I needed Austin Dillon to start 18th to 20th, not 8th. Because, I mean, if he starts 8th, finishes 10th, doesn't lead any laps, and has very little fast laps, that's not, I mean, other than being $6,800, that's really the only sell here. But I just don't think this is a smart play. As you can see, I've got 0 to 5% interest in him. And he came in 8th on my ranking system. He's good at a Kansas. I mean, I could see playing him a little bit. I just don't have any interest. And I think Austin Dillon ends up being a better play than an Eric Jones. And there's 11 place differential spots between the two of them. So I don't know. Just don't love. I don't love the Eric Jones play, and I don't love the Austin Dillon play. We're also in this weird price range where, like I've talked about before, if you're running a Denny Hamlin, a Truex, if you're running 2 or 3 plus a Kyle or Ty, you're out of money. And the only way to make those work is to run the Justin Haley, J.J. Yaley's, Ty Dillons of the world. A $6,800 driver just doesn't fit inside of those builds. So, I mean, you could be really contrarian and really kind of out there and play an Eric. If you're going off of a place differential and you want to kind of run a contrarian lineup, you can run an Eric Jones, Eric Almirola, AJ Allmendinger, all these guys that are starting 19th to 25th, 26th. Nobody else is going to have those lineups, and if it happens to play, all right. I mean, but Eric Almirola, 6,700, okay. 28th in single lap, 20th in 10 lap consecutive average. You went out and qualified 25th. Well, that seems probably about right. And that's probably where you're going to run most of the day. Now, he got a 13th place finish in the spring. Okay. But he's got a 23rd place average finish over the last 5 races. So that's an anomaly. A 17.9 average finish over 24 total starts. No top 5s. Only 1 top 20 in the last 5 races here. I don't. I mean, yes, stuff happens and attrition happens, and a 25th place driver ends up finishing 12th because it just happens. But I don't go off of hope. And there's nothing here that tells me that. And Kansas is not the style of track where you've got huge amounts of attrition. We'll have some. Don't get me wrong. We'll have 5 to 7 guys that don't finish the race. That's not enough, though, to move Eric Almirola up. I mean, that if that happens and he finishes where he's supposed to finish, that might be an 18th place finish. I'm not sure at 6,700 he fits with everything else that's going on. Kind of like a Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe was pretty decent. But once again, his average finishes aren't great. He finished 32nd here in the spring. He's starting 26th. I mean, we've got some place differential upside. But, I mean, start building these lineups. It is almost more difficult to fit these guys in than fitting a Kyle Busch in your lineup. And, you know, I mean, you're talking about a Kyle Busch starting 35th compared to an Eric Almirola or Chase Briscoe starting 25th or 26th. I'm going to try to figure out how to fit the Kyle Busch in before I figure out how to fit these guys in. They're gonna finish slightly better than where they're starting. And I mean, who knows what AJ Allmendinger is going to do here? He is such a strange. One week he does really well at these ovals, and the next week he's just awful. He was 22nd in practice. He qualified 22nd, but he finished 14th a one race sample. He finished 14th here in the spring. That's not enough for me to go on. Out of his 20 total starts here, which, I mean, we're talking about the last 3 generations of cars that we're looking at, he's got a 19.7 average finish. He's never finished in the top 5. Not that I need a $6,500 driver starting 22nd to go finish in the top 5, but I need to have a pretty good solid idea that he might finish top 10. Well, his practice speeds weren't even there to do that. So I don't have a whole lot of interest in AJ Allmendinger. And as much as I would like to take a Carson Hocevar starting 21st, who just, I mean, ran one of the hardest tracks in NASCAR, one of the longest races, finished where he started last week, which was great on Carson. And in fact, all right, this is going to get dizzy. I'm going to go back. Did Carson actually end up making the top 15? No, he did not. So he didn't make the top 15 last week. And he had a good run last week. I was very impressed with a 21-year-old kid who is new to the Cup Series and has only raced a handful of Xfinity races, and only this year has started to run well in trucks, to go out and do what he did last week in the Cup car. Super impressive. I still just don't, I mean, I think Carson Hocevar's ceiling tomorrow is 15th. And that's a big maybe. I kind of think we're also talking about a legacy motorsports car that's not getting any manufacturer support. Yeah, I mean, last week he overachieved. At Gateway he overachieved until they had a mechanical issue. I just don't know and see how Carson gets a top 15 unless we've just got some really, really crazy attrition. If that's the case, then most everybody's lineups are screwed up anyways. So I faded off of Carson. Austin Cindric. 6,200, starting 18th. 27th in practice, 19th place average finish, only 2 top 20. So, I mean, half the time he's finished in the top 20, but you're starting in the top 20. Don't know what to tell you to do with Austin Cindric. I don't love the Austin Cindric play, and why I've got him in 15 to 20% of my lineups. And this is kind of why I do these videos. Because I go, that makes absolutely no sense. Why? I would almost rather take a little away from Austin Cindric and give it to Carson Hocevar. I think it's possibly the same coin flip. And I'm gaining 3 spots for about the same price. So I may, and I've always said on this video, I do these videos to help with my lineups after I'm finished constructing them, to go, oh, why did I do that? And this is one that I'm kind of scratching my head going, why do I have an Austin Cindric 15 to 20% of the time starting 18th? Yeah, I don't know. Good question. I mean, I do have Ryan Preece at 15 to 20%, but Ryan Preece is starting 28th. There are only 8 spots worse starting spot. Now, Ryan Preece, what have you done for me lately? Nothing. 26.7 place average finish over 3 starts, no top 20s. Out of 7 total starts, he only got 1 top 20 at 25.7. This is, in this type of track, is not in his wheelhouse. Other than the fact he's 6,100, I mean, you want to talk about somebody who's probably going to finish where they practiced. His ceiling is probably 20th, and that's going to be a pretty good day for Ryan Preece if he finishes 20th. The problem is, I mean, you've got Sheldon Creed at $6,000, which I think Sheldon Creed's, out of everybody on this page, well, maybe next to Carson. Well, he probably is. He's a better driver than Carson. But the problem is, he's driving for the 78. He's driving for BJ McLeod. And I'm sure he's under explicit instructions from BJ, don't go wreck my car. That and Sheldon probably had to pay to go drive the car for exposure. He was 34th in single lap, and he was a dead last in 10-lap consecutive average. Starting 34th, I mean, with the parameters that Sheldon Creed has to go drive that 78, you could literally almost put Kyle Larson in this car with those parameters, and Kyle Larson's gonna finish 30th maybe. It's just that they don't have any speed, and he's not willing to take the risk. So I don't care if you put Sheldon Creed in this car. I don't care if you bring back Jimmy Johnson and tell him to run this car. It just, with the parameters that the 78 has, they don't want to screw their cars, and I understand it. They're looking for some attrition to help them move up, which gets them maybe a little bit better in the points, and make some money, and then hopefully build on that for 5 years, and all of a sudden have enough money to maybe be competitive. I don't love the Sheldon Creed thing, other than maybe some attrition. That's why I mean that, you had to save some money, and Sheldon's like, okay, I'll give it a shot, because what was it, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, Parker Kligerman got into one of these cars, either the 78 or 15 or 51, and went from 40th to 20th and was in the optimal lineup. That's the type of scenario that Sheldon Creed's in. Is, hey, don't go out and screw this car up, get some experience, learn, but bring this car back in one piece. You know, stuff does happen, tires blow and things like that, but don't go out and do anything stupid and try to race through the field. Where Justin Haley drives for a team that's like, nope, go out and get us a trophy, starting 30th. The problem is Justin Haley's, he's okay, but practice speeds weren't. He was 32nd in single lap. He was next to last in 10 lap consecutive average. Now, he finished 18th in the spring, and he's got a 24.8 average finish. I mean, out of most of you on this page, I'm probably going to go after a Justin Haley starting 30th. At least you've got a decent amount of place differential here. It's still, once again, you're almost not even saving enough money to take what you would want to take in the top half. This lineup construction ended up being extremely difficult. At least I found it to be extremely difficult. Maybe I was starting to overthink it, but I found lineup construction for 40 lineups. I found it to be more on the tough side than I thought it was going to end up being. Corey LaJoie, I mean, and then you got a Corey LaJoie who goes out and practices 31st, qualifies 24th, and he's been running pretty well this year. But for that, I need Corey LaJoie to go probably finish 15th. It's possible. Doubtful, but it's possible. But in 5,600, I mean, really what ended up happening was I literally was like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo with these guys that are starting back here. None of them on paper, statistically, practice, or anything make me go, oh, there's the sneaky pick. I mean, other than maybe a Sheldon Creed, maybe a Carson Hocevar, because they're probably going to be slightly overlooked because of their lack of experience. If there is enough attrition and they're not in it, maybe they end up doing decent. They do okay with Draftkings points. And because you saved a ton of money, potentially, but I mean, even, I'm telling you, when building these lineups, building the high-end lineups, you literally had to put Ty Dillon and a Cole Custer in lineups, which made me go, I don't like that play at all. I mean, Harrison Burton, starting 29th, 33rd in single lap, 30th in the spring race with a 27.7 average finish and no top 20s. I mean, even at $5,400, I'm scratching my head going, one of these guys is going to be the play. Which one? Maybe Todd Gillen. Because he's the only one out of this whole entire group from about $6,400 and cheaper that had a decent practice. He was 11th in single lap and 17th in 10 lap consecutive average. And he qualified 32nd. So maybe Todd Gillen is the play at $5,200. Head scratcher this weekend. I'm at a loss, to be perfectly honest with it. If you guys are coming here for advice, I'm scratching my head going, I don't know which way to go with this for DraftKings. Oh my God, Texas is beating Alabama by 10, 2 minutes left in the game. Hopefully nobody was tape delaying. Sorry if I screwed your watching that later up. Cole Custer, $5,100, starting 27th. Now he's got a 21.5 average finish, but that's when he was racing with Stuart Haas, not when he was driving the 51. 35th place in practice. Didn't do a 10-lap consecutive average. Why am I going to start a Cole Custer starting 27th when I think he's probably going to finish 33rd? I mean, at best he finishes 25th, which is 2 spots. I mean, other than the fact we look back at last week at the optimal lineup, and you had to have somebody that only had 21 points, but they were $4,900 or $4,700 because it fit the rest of the group. I honestly think we're in store for another optimal lineup, strange weirdo lineups like we had last week. I mean, JJ Yaley, $5,000. Sure, you save a ton of money. But I mean, JJ's got a 27.3 average finish, which is actually decent for JJ Yaley. Finished 23rd in the spring. Okay. 30th in single lap practice. Didn't do a 10-lap consecutive average, but he's starting 31st. You know Ty Gibbs is going to pass him, and you know Kyle Busch is going to pass him. So right there, he's going to go to 33rd. Same thing with all these guys. All these guys are going to get passed within the first 20 laps with at least those 2 guys. We know right out of the gate they're losing 2 spots. I got 97% sure that that's going to happen. Sure, there's a 3% chance that there's a wreck mid-pack and those 2 guys get taken out. Doubtful, though. Ty Dillon, $4,900. Last guy, cheapest guy on the board. Starting 33rd. 36th in single lap. At least his average finish is 20.7. Driving pretty much the same car. So, okay. We're finally got somebody who's actually got a decent average finish. And when I say decent, it's decent. It's not great. But he finished 22nd here in the spring. I'm telling you, that go build these lineups. I mean, literally, if you look at the top 4 people that I have, 11,000, 10,200, 10,500, 10,700. 1, if not 2 of these are going to be optimal lineup. Along with maybe a Tyler Reddick and a Bubba Wallace. But I mean, you can't run those 6. You can't even run those 5 without almost hitting your max lineup. This ended up being a much trickier lineup construction than I have seen in the past. Just because the people who were not good are not good, and the people who are good are really good. And there's no real kind of happy middle ground, especially when you've got Kyle Busch and Ty Gibbs coming from 35th and 36th. I mean, let's look at these optimal lineups from the past. I mean, 10,700, 11,200, $9,000, $7,000. Now we're down to 58 and 61. Sure, they had place differential, but they didn't. I mean, they still didn't finish top 10. But you had to have them in because you had a Kyle Larson who led 85 laps, was a dominator, and started second. I mean, that's the other thing, is don't be absolutely nervous or scared about taking people who are starting in the top 5. I mean, Alex Bowman started 3rd, finished 4th in the fall race last year. But I mean, once again, you get down here, 6,500, 5,500. They look like awful plays. Now, Eric Almirola was starting 36. I mean, that seemed to be all you needed was him to finish was 20th. And he ends up making the optimal lineup. So, yeah. Look at the spring race. We had Ricky Stenhouse and Christopher Bell, both above $6,000 in pricing. But 3 value plays. Down here, 3 value plays. We had a $6,000 Cole Custer, a $7,100 Parker Cleargarden. Well, Parker Cleargarden was starting 40th, finishing 20th. That's like Sheldon Creed, but Sheldon Creed's starting a little bit higher up than this. Yeah, I'm not sure. I I mean, what is that? 6 different spots. I mean, that takes into the mid-30s, but I don't know. Ryan Priest, 32nd to 21st. I mean, when do you start targeting people that are going to finish in the 20s to make optimal lineups? Oh, I know when. Because you're literally targeting Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Chase Elliott to be in your lineup. Taking up 30... What is that? 2, 3... 30... Almost, you almost have $18,000 left over to spend on 3 drivers. You're talking about an average of $6,000 left per driver. That you get into, like I said, you're taking 57, 6,000, and 7,000. Where typically you can find 1 or 2 really expensive guys to take, 1 to 2 guys that are in that $8,000-$9,000 range, and then you're gonna bottom feed for 1 driver, and then you'll find another kind of sleeper in that $7,000-$8,000 range. No, the only way that this lineup construction was, I was scratching my head the entire time. Good luck. That's all I could say. I'm not real sure what to do with some of these with the bottom barrel. So what I did was I'm running enough lineups that, I mean, I'm 15 to 20% on Todd Gillen, 10 to 15% on Harrison Burton, 10 to 15% on Corey LaJoie, 15 to 20%. I mean, if you can find which one of these guys is going to be the sleeper, and I don't think it's Sheldon Creed in the 78. Maybe the Justin Haley play. Carson could potentially be sneaky, and maybe that's why I end up with a decent amount of Austin Center, because I just don't trust the Carson Hocevar play. And I was like, oh, maybe Austin Center is the better play. I mean, kind of in line with everybody else in this price range. That's probably why I ended up. I mean, 10 to 15% of Corey LaJoie, 10 to 15% of Harrison Burton, 15 to 20% of Todd Gillen, because he's got that 11th place practice speed, which may be an anomaly, but I just don't like where Cole Custer is starting too far up for me. Yeah, baffling. That's all I could say. So yeah, that's how I'm building my lineups, is 3 to 4 guys on the heavy end and 2 guys on the cheap end. And you could probably slip and slide, a Ty Gibbs in there, take out, The problem is, which one of the guys do you choose? Do you choose the Denny Hamlin to come out, or do you choose the Martin Truex Jr., or do you take a Kyle Larson out? I mean, these are guys that literally have won 3, 4, 5 times here and have dominated 90, 80, 100 laps. I mean, Kyle Larson, 130 laps in the fall of 2021. A Kurt Busch, which Tyler Reddick is driving that car now, 116 laps led. Alex Bowman, Alex Bowman, that's a new one, but I mean, Bubba Wallace led 58 laps, finished first. Not quite a dominator, but still, he was pretty dominant that entire race. Denny Hamlin led 34 laps. Kyle Larson led 85 laps. I mean, these are the same guys every time. Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Justin Haley. So, I mean, in the last 2, Justin Haley have made the optimal lineup, starting 30th and 27th. So maybe the Justin Haley's that sneaky pick. But Kyle Larson again. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but he started 36. Got an 8th. That kind of looks like a bit of an anomaly, but a William Byron led 57 laps. Kyle Larson 130 laps. I mean, this all Hendrick. But that's also in the old gen car, which doesn't really equate to the same. So there's my 2 cents on what to do this week. Sorry if I'm kind of probably leaving you more in the dark than you originally were when you started watching this, maybe. I don't know. I think I'm more confused myself than I helped myself. I mean, other than I might be a little heavy on Austin Cindric. The rest of it, I think my lineups are in okay shape. It really is going to be a coin flip. So good luck this week. I think it's going to be a great race. I think that's probably the best takeaway from this is Kansas, the last 3 races have been phenomenal races. So hopefully we get an incredible race, lots of slipping and sliding, lots of everything. Let me know how you end up doing. But it'll be interesting to see how everybody's lineups come out. We're also going up against the NFL and college football and all the other things that are now going on in the sports world. And we've got Major League Baseball and playoffs coming up soon. So this is the time of year where NASCAR, the reason why they had to put the chase in, because if they didn't, they just become non-existent. Even though I'd still rather watch the race than any of it. But let me know how you end up doing. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Tune in next week. Next week we have a Saturday night race. So my plan will be Sunday or Saturday afternoon. I'm not going to wait till the day after the race to do the video. That'd be kind of dumb. Even though I could give you a really good prediction. But that won't work. Saturday night race at Bristol. I will try to be live, let's say 2 o'clock Saturday. Give or take. Don't hold me to an exact time. Just because I've got a 12-year-old and a family and life and everything else. So I hope to be on at about 2 o'clock on next Saturday to break down the Bristol night race. One of the best races of the year. That's the great thing. We do have back-to-back great races in the playoffs. So tune in next Saturday. We will see you then. Have a great Sunday afternoon. Enjoy the race and enjoy the start of NFL. Have a good one. Thanks. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W, so got to be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah!
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal we got in here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away. Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.